And it's back to the frequency and the vibration that we're trying to raise into people's psychology and psychiatry. The mental state is the subjugating battlefield of the oppressive regime through miseducation and misinformation. So now you got all of these brothers coming out now. We ain't got no degrees. I ain't got no PhD.
Right.
Right? I don't regurgitate scholastic data. I tell you what the spirit told me, and then I go get you a reference to show you what it looked like in the physical world. But to people, it make it look like I'm smart. So I just smile and act like I'm smart. But I'm just reading the frequency and the energy that I learned how to translate by trying to build myself into the best me. Them just side effects of the skills developed in the pursuit of the better self. Right? And we learn how to read the water, the air, the trees, the animals talk to us. It just don't sound like people want it to sound.
That's right.
Hey,
they want the animal to talk to you in English. He don't talk in English. He talk in frequency. This will make people believe if they don't watch you do it, they'll think that you use some kind of modern chemicals to produce with the plants that this does.
Correct.
Exactly.
Like your watermelon to be 3 times sweeter, but it might be 4 times bigger.
Right.
First off, Brother Rich, you describe in your book of life and how you process your life.
Oh, okay.
When you run into them obstacles like that, if you neglect something that you know you're supposed to do, you're going to create a condition that's going to force you to go back to where you was until you pass the test.
Absolutely.
You lay these out in your book of life so that you can remember what you're working on while you here, one step at a time.
Right.
You can't skip steps because every time you skip a step, you get sent back to repeat the step. That's your book of life. As far as the inanimate objects, they only going to follow the energy that you carry with you. They not animate. They don't have what we call soul essence, but they still have the spirit of the object. You probably, the two brothers here probably, I don't know if you old enough, Brother Rich, but all of us had an uncle, grandfather, or elder that called their car by a female name and say sometimes you just got to talk to her.
I've heard
you go out there try to start the car, it won't start, and he come out there, he say, yo, you don't know how to get old Betsy started, do you? And he say sometimes she need a little love. He go grab his polishing rag and he talking sweet to the car and polishing the car up. He get in there and half turn start on the first try. A comparative analysis, the same way you describe being in that car, moving at 90 miles an hour while you sitting still, your higher self is in your body while you walk into the store saying, woo, I'm walking to the store at 2 miles an hour and I'm sitting still. Right? Cycles within cycles, relays, comparative events. The strongest ones gonna stay at the bottom the longest because they can take it better than the rest. Until it come a time when spirit calls the strongest ones at the bottom to flip the pyramid and stand on top. This is the whole philosophy of the rejected stone that the builders rejected, becoming the chief cornerstone. He went from being a cornerstone at the setting of the foundation to being the capstone over the arch. That's the royal arc degree, right? That's at the crown chakra. So when we go through these phases, we can't lose track of the struggle is there because we can take it more than other people. So we took on the struggle to build up the pre-karma in order to cleanse other people's wicked ways from the planet. It's a catharsis of the ones that was on top. They have to burn that energy off in order for them to be refined into something better than they was when they was created. It's visible for the ones who can see the signs, but the visibility is cloaked with the artificial narrative being scripted and spoon-fed to us as if we some children that don't know what we looking at. They watching the movie. I don't want to watch the movie. I want to watch the director and the writer. What y'all putting together, right? So when I'm telling y'all what the director and the writer doing, y'all think I'm talking about the movie. I can give less than a damn about the movie. Right. It might be a good movie. I might not have a problem with the movie itself. I just got a problem with the writer and the narrative he was pushing and the director for pushing you in a direction that the writer wanted you to go. These ultraviolet rays coming in from the sun is going to keep coming in until all of this mental fog is lifted from the people. They waking up. The reason why, okay, E is energy. Yeah. It's the equation is equal to matter, and C represents the speed of light squared means times 2. Right? That was the reason why that formula was so urgent is because it opened a pathway for what's known as the Manhattan Project. And the science from that is where Lloyd Quartermain and his physicist team went in when they couldn't figure out how to turn Einstein's formula into a method to split the atom. And then they designed the atomic bomb based on that science. That's what make him discovering the reversed energy. If it's mass moving at the speed of light squared, then if you can interrupt the nucleus, then it'll set off what's called a chain reaction, which they call nuclear fission, right? And this in turn will cause what's known as the radioactive fallout, which is a side effect of the splitting of the atom. This is the only reason why it's the most popular formula, because it was the foundational formula for splitting the atom. But this unified field theory was a little bit different. That's what gave rise to the understanding of quantum entanglement.
Yes.
That all things being connected.
Yes. Yes.
Right. Which metaphysically is sound, and that's not Einstein's original work. The unified field theory can be traced back to Kemet, back to ancient America, back to ancient Tibet. Right. So he just put it into modern science to be utilized. Right. To understand it. He also gave him the observer effect. Right. So his works, he did a lot of good scientific work, but scientifically, it might sound arrogant to say this, but Einstein was a toddler compared to our ancestors.
Absolutely.
Linear logic only, no abstract reason, no right brain involvement in the translation of the data. Go back to the beginning of the so-called discovery of gravity. Newton sitting under a tree, apple fall out, bump him into his head. And he said, ouch, what made this apple hit me upside my head? So whatever the cause was, he named it gravity, right? And the descriptive analysis was that the larger object's pull draws the smaller object to it, right? This is the standard model for gravity. But it don't explain why the moon don't crash into the earth, right? The moon should be crashed into the earth based on position, unless there's something else keeping the moon from crashing into the earth, because the pull of the earth is like 10 times stronger than the pull of the moon. The moon's supposed to surrender its orbit to the superior body according to the laws of gravity, but it doesn't.
Good point.
Right. So there's something else at play. The narrative that you was just reading describes the field, what we would call it an electromagnetic field. Yes. It's the magnets, the draw and the pull. And they come together, they create a field. And this is how cymatics can show you what sound look like in the 3-dimensional form without you being able to see the sound with your naked eye.
That part.
But you can see the side effect of the sound in the cymatic design that tells you from the shape structure of what you designed, what the frequency, pitch, tone, and vibration was of the sound used to make it. Right? So when we go to Michael Talbot's The Holographic Universe, right, you need a fixed position object and a moving object to produce the hologram. All parts of the hologram is equivalent to the whole of the hologram. You can see all parts in the microcosmic piece of the hologram, right? But they don't always have to look the same, right? So this is how we become holographic projectors of the God force in human form. That's the truth, but the human form is the falsehood, right? So when we realize we're not the body, then the mind can leave the body sitting where it's at and go do its own business. They call it astral projection, lucid dreaming, and it's just a natural capability of spirit beings to be able to leave the physical vessel and traverse higher realms of consciousness, what they call higher dimensions. The electromagnetic field has in it a point where if you're closer to one side of the magnet, you will go to that one. But if you're closer to the other, you'll go to that one, right? That's called magnetism. This is what the guy you was just reading is describing, the effect of magnetism on the object that comes between the field projected from the push and the pull of the electricity and the magnetism, or the radiance and the attractive properties of the mother line, father line, right? Remember, our ancestors always used person, places, or things to teach complex sciences in a simplified form. And we begin to worship those those names of those nouns as gods, but they just principles in quantum physics to be able to be used to explain to people who doesn't have a scientific background how the energies is moving. When we talk about Big Mama energy, everybody been to Big Mama house. They all know what we're talking about. But if we put it into a scientific form, now we talking dark matter. We talking orgone energy. We talking prime ether. And the science keep changing the name to try to confuse the children who the name belonged to in the first place. When we called it the primordial noon, we knew what we was talking about. But now they think that the primordial noon is some being walking around calling himself noon. Mork from Ork. It's not going to happen. It's a scientific formula using person, place, or things in order to explain the concept of the mother energy of prime creator, the father energy, the active principle of creation, right? The mother and the father line. A side effect of the father is he going to have a son in his image after his likeness, procreation, right? We still telling biology, quantum physics, metaphysics, all in the form of the holy drama, the great story. But it's playing out in the human reality as our day-to-day life, but all it is a reenactment of the creation story being played out in the human arena. And this is why every time we get to the close of the age, a whole bunch of us wake up at one time and start teaching. Just get to work, roll your sleeves up. We got a new reality to create. We got to prepare for the next 24,000 years by laying the foundation of the first 7 generations of this age.
There you go.
Just what we doing.
Yes.
I just had a luxury of having multiple past life memories so I could come back and say, hey, I remember doing this before. My phone didn't have English letters on it, but they sure as hell had hieroglyphics on it, or they had cuneiform on it, or Sanskrit on it, depending on which time frame. But we do it all the time. Plummet to the depths in order to rise to the heights. If you don't know what it's like to be rock bottom, you will never be able to appreciate being on top.
Man, oh man.
And that's the chapter of misery. You got to be miserable to stay at the bottom. and we be weak in a whole lot of stuff, but it's one thing that we obstinate and unmoved. What is that, Mo? His name is misery.
So you
See, that's a huge compliment.
Was a giant.
Listen, we got to come up and be capable of holding the fort down for what they left us.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And we needed a Moorish metaphysician, and here he is. C. Freeman Neal. Look, C. Freeman Neal came through, did a pigeon drop on us, left us with some high powered stuff. Now it's up to one of the Moors with the black feds to come behind him.
Stand on his shoulders.
Yes. Because a midget can see further from a giant's shoulders than the giant can see himself.
Come on, brother. That's a fact.
You know? So we standing on the shoulders of some very, very powerful elders that came before us. And we got to acknowledge that as part of acknowledging this whole struggle, the chapter of misery and the breaking free from the chaptery. We can't stay in misery. We got to bring it to an end.
Right. Yeah. Right.
They was left in power long enough for us to learn how to run a government. I could run it by myself. And I ain't the only one.
For sure.
Because what they doing over here, calling government, exploiting the people, it has to come to an end. And this is us announcing that it's an end to their reign and their tyranny and their misuse of the people. This got to be known. So when I see somebody standing on the shoulder of a giant, I'm gonna point that out.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate you.
A lot of people think Moorish science is only law.
Right.
It's way more than that.
It's way more than that.
That's
right. So this is why the prophet said, get a good Moorish education, because you're gonna find out some stuff gonna break your heart, and you're gonna find out some things that make you feel like a champ. All of that comes from what's called Shakti.
Shakti.
Right. That's everything, including the holographic projector, is held together by siphoning what we call dark matter or Shakti energy, which is the pure energy of the divine feminine. Right. That's creator energy at its source. The dimensions spiral in from first dimension to multiple dimensions up. Like, let's take a slinky. Stretch the slinky out and look at it from the bottom and watch the spiral.
Right.
Now, if you take two of them and you pinch them together, you have an infinity loop. On the bottom of it, you have one reality, and on the top of it, you have what's called the upside down. The only way to escape the infinity loop is you have to jump the fourth dimension into the fifth. That's why nobody never talks about the fourth dimensional ascension. We already in the fourth and the third simultaneously because of the infinity loop. Right. Years ago, the Anunnaki opened a portal between the third and the fourth dimension, and then they ignited a nuclear type of explosion that collapsed the fourth into the third. So now we need sleep. We need to be able to live in two dimensions simultaneously, and nature has a way of like adjusting to whatever you throw at it. So when we go to sleep, our dreams is fourth dimensional mental matrix. When we are awake, we in three-dimensional fixed position reality of the 3D matrix. The three-dimensional matrix has a damper on it. It's like putting a silencer on a gun, and that's the holographic projector system set up by the Dark Knight satellite and the moon. And that's what keep us thinking that this is more real than higher dimensions, which has been here longer. That's why they never collide. They're not even supposed to be. Okay, you got the Dark Knight satellite going with us, a north-south polar orbit, whereas the moon goes in the east-west equatorial orbit. right?
Mm-hmm.
But they on the same trajectory lines, but they never collide. That doesn't make sense unless it's controlled. Because they move at different speeds, but they never collide. Well, we didn't need sleep for one. We didn't perceive the concept of time. The concept